Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show this Sunday, June 8th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, can you guys believe what Ukraine did? They quite literally, I think it's 4,500 miles away from the Ukrainian border. They took, I guess, a truck and they filled it with these little drones, the type of drones that you guys could actually buy, like these little, little. I think DJI makes an awful lot of these drones. These little small drones that you can buy at the hobby store practically. They took a whole truckload of them and they operated them by what's called FPV. It's like a remote operation of these drones. And they were like 4,500 miles away operating them, I guess, off of a Starlink or whatever, operating these drones. And they actually went in and they attacked 1/3 of the Russians' nuclear triad. Now, the Russians' nuclear triad comes in three parts. One part is the submarines. The second part is their land-based ballistic missiles. And the third place is their bombers. The bombers deliver the nuclear payloads. They attacked the bomber part of the Russian nuclear triad. From that kind of a distance, though, this operation is it's right up there with being ingenious, like almost like the city of Troy when they moved the Trojan horse into the city, sort of a thing. It was kind of like a real sneaky attack, and it because Russians would never expect them to attack that deep inside Russian. I think it's 4,500 miles away. And it was absolutely a stunning success. But we all sat back here in the West and when it happened, and we held our breath, right, when it first happened, because we didn't know what Russia was going to do back in retaliation. Well, now it seems like we're seeing the retaliation. Russia has struck on Ukraine overnight and killed 7 and injured at least 41, and this is just happening. And this has been ongoing for a number of nights, different nights. Russia's been attacking back, but it wasn't a nuclear attack. That's what. Let's just get out and put it out there, and that's what I was holding my breath, hoping that they wouldn't. Uh, it wouldn't trigger something greater, because this was an attack on Russia's nuclear triad, and they basically, I'm not going to say they took out 1/3 of the Russian nuclear triad, but they gave it a hard hit. Those airplanes were not expecting to be attacked 4,500 miles inside of Russia, and they were just basically sitting out on the runway like sitting ducks. And those little FPV drones, I guess, come down and had explosives inside them, and the fuselage of those airplanes is it's only aluminum, and it doesn't take much of an explosion to blow up an airplane sitting on the runway. So I guess it was almost like a massacre for those planes that were sitting on the runway in Russia. But that's a big attack, and it could have led to something really much bigger. But this is what the result is the Russians are back to striking on Ukraine pretty hard. Well, they killed 7 overnight and injured 41 right inside Ukraine. Russians have been making advancements into Ukraine territory. It's frustrating. Trump is trying to get this war solved. Uh, he says, and this is talking about that strike I was just talking about. He says that they gave Putin a reason to go in and bomb the hell out of them last night. Yeah, but there's a bit more to that. I mean, like I say, it wasn't a nuclear strike. Something that big, that's like a Pearl Harbor on Russia to try to take out 1/3 of their nuclear triad in one sweep. That's like a Pearl Harbor move. You know what's getting me is how nobody is talking about what's going on over in Ukraine any longer. And we're so close. I mean, after that happened, I was just holding my breath. nobody's talking about it. Nobody's mentioning it. Nobody is concerned. Tell you what, if a nuclear bomb does get dropped, then suddenly people will be concerned. Let's put it that way. But uh, Trump's frustrated because of the progress it's making on these Russian-Ukraine negotiations. It says U.S. President Trump has suggested letting Russia and Ukraine fight for a while before intervening. I guess he's just frustrated at this point. Uh, German Chancellor Merz visited Washington to urge cooperation on the U.S. on supporting Ukraine and putting pressure on Russia to end the war, including discussions about sanctions. And Russia launched drone attacks on Kiev following the meeting between Trump and Merz, highlighting the ongoing conflict despite diplomatic efforts. So that's where we sit right now. It's not really going all that well. So we got this inflamed war going on in Russia that nobody's paying any attention to. That is the most significant war for to trigger some sort of escalation that could lead to a world war even, and nobody's paying any attention to it whatsoever. So that's what we got going on right now, guys. Now, back in the United States, Trump and Musk, they're having their outs. I kind of figured that this relationship of friendly handshake relationship between Trump and Musk, I kind of thought while it was ongoing, I said to myself, this ain't gonna last. I was just saying to myself, this ain't gonna last. It's like somebody pouring oil and water into a flask and shaking it real good and saying, look, they mix real well. Yeah, sit it on the table for a while, then come back and look. You know what I mean? It just, I kind of knew. I kind of had that feeling in my gut that it wasn't going to last. So now we're to the point where it's not. It says Trump warns Musk of very serious consequences if he backs the Democrats. Donald Trump warned Elon Musk on Saturday that he faces very serious consequences if he funds Democratic candidates, following the pair's epic public bust up this week. I wonder what sort of consequences. I don't know. But he's saying very serious consequences if he supports any Democratic candidates. Interesting. Now, 2,000 National Guard troops are being sent to L.A., Los Angeles. There's clashes over immigration raids. Looks like they got the street blocked off there, and it looks like they're throwing smoke grenades onto the street. And they got shopping carts laid down to try to keep cars from going through. You know? Yeah. That they only act like those shopping carts would act very similar to cones, traffic cones. Except they would damage your car. If you tried to get through there, they'd probably scratch your car all up. Rather than a traffic cone that typically doesn't tend to hurt your car any. But that's what's going on. 2,000 National Guard troops are sent to Los Angeles. So there's upset and there's turmoil in the United States right now while we speak. Now these data centers that they're planning on building, AI is coming in, and is it actually worth the building of these data centers? This is the big question. This is a big outlay of money that's coming in. Where's the adoption rate of AI? Where's it going? And how high is it? Well, it is coming in. AI is coming in, and let me see here. As for the AI adoption rate, analysts found that as of May, approximately 9.2% of U.S. firms reported using AI in the production of goods and services, up from 7.4% in the fourth quarter of 2024. So the first quarter, what we've seen is from the fourth quarter of 2024 into the first quarter of 2025, we've seen an increase of 7.4% going up to 9.2%. That's a pretty fast jump from 7.4% to 9.2%. Maybe they were expecting more though. Uh, uh, it says the most significant quarter-over-quarter gains occurred in the education, information, finance, and professional service sectors. So it is being adopted, but is it being adopted at the speed where they think it's worth these data centers or whatever? Because they're investing billions in them. Uh, it says, let me see here. I'm trying to get to the nitty gritty. Uh, it says investors will need to see AI adoption across corporate America continue to climb in order to justify the massive infrastructure build out. But, they're expecting this massive infrastructure build out. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay and stuff, new technology and things like that, before they will get this massive infrastructure build out. Now, this week in silver and stuff, we've seen a big price increase in silver this week, guys. And it ended the week at 35.85. We haven't seen those kind of prices in quite a while, to tell you the truth. It's getting up near $40. Uh, so, I mean, still, like, uh, it's funny how gold price dropped on Friday and the silver price went up. It seems like, for years and years, I followed the gold and silver price on this channel since this channel's inception. And generally, they follow one another. It's why they call it silver and gold. Generally, they follow one another, but I've seen increasingly in the past little while where gold has become more, investors are more looking at it as a hedge against inflation. And they've been looking at it as a monetary asset, and silver it's been lagging behind gold a little bit because of its industrial usage, and it's been kind of declassified as a monetary asset. That's not meaning it won't come back as a monetary asset, and I could see very well sometime in the future silver returning to its position as a monetary asset, which would even put more pressure on it. But what we're seeing is it's a price at 35.85. That's the highest price we've seen for silver for a while now, you know. But I still think that silver has a tremendous amount of room to run. I've been saying this all along, all during my show, how silver I think is the top number one, even though gold is the one that kind of got a kick in the pants first, because when the tariffs and stuff went in, they were very concerned. It's settled back down now a lot, but it shows when they get concerned, when they get feeling anxiety in the financial system, they run to a safe haven asset, and the one they really run to the most is gold. They go for the gold. That's the old saying, they go for the gold. And so as far as cryptocurrencies, an awful lot of people like Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, but myself, I'm a little bit hesitant upon it. Uh, about cryptocurrencies, I'm getting to be less and less of a fan all the time, and I see the vulnerabilities in them. Bitcoin itself has to function 24/7, and it has ever since 2009 till now. It's functioned, but it's a digital computer algorithm, and uh, if it gets an error in its code or anything could happen. I mean, it's programmed, it's computer program, and what's its vulnerabilities, Um, like I say, and I've pointed this out in my show, is we've got an emerging technology right now that's unbelievably powerful. Quantum technology. And when they first started with it, they got something called qubits. These little bits that are what interact with quantum technology, and it's the amount of qubits that they have. They weren't able to have a lot of qubits, and they had to keep them really cold, and it was in laboratory conditions, and quantum computers weren't really a thing. And all of a sudden, boom, in this past month or two, they've made breakthroughs like you wouldn't believe. in quantum computer technology. And when they get that quantum qubit number up big time, I don't have a doubt in my mind that they're going to be able to break codes, break algorithms. They're going to be able to break passwords. They're going to be able to what they're going to be able to do with those quantum computers is almost magical. And our whole financial system is vulnerable. Now, where the big money lies in these things, in the main parts of the financial system, if attackers come in with quantum computers on those, they will go in and do fixes. Like in the main part of where you're dealing with dollars. And somebody does some sort of a quantum computer attack on the main system, they will come in with some sort of fixes, bug fixes or whatever, or fix the algorithms, or they'll do whatever they have to do. But what about the cryptos? What about their utility? Is as far as they're not really, they're mostly used as it's almost I on the tip of my tongue I got the word novelty. But they're not really used for, you don't go to Walmart and pay with Bitcoin. I mean, people buy Bitcoin as a HODL asset to hold it indefinitely as some sort of a savings or whatever, but that's all reliant upon that algorithm functioning within the system. And here you got this enemy coming in now called quantum computers that could take that algorithm out. I mean, okay, I'll admit, maybe it's in the future that we're going to face this problem. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not that far away, but might be a year or two in the future. And I'll admit, maybe I mean, maybe it'll never happen, or maybe it will happen. But do you really want to risk a lot of money on it not happening if it did happen? Can you afford to lose whatever you've got invested? Because in the main financial system, if they do some sort of an attack with quantum computers, they'll probably refund your money at the bank. Like if they steal your bank account or whatever, they'll probably refund it, and they'll probably fix that. They won't let them get away with it, in other words. But when you're talking about something that's cryptocurrencies, that's the first place they're going to head to attack, because they know they're not going to get in as big a trouble and stuff. They're not going to get the big heat down on them if they go after. Well, they will. They'll still get in trouble and stuff, but it's not the. I just got this feeling that's the first place they're going to head if they get once they get their quantum computer. Or the first place the criminals are going to head is they're going to say, "Hey, let's try to get some Bitcoin," you know. And if they did break Bitcoin, once it's broke, it's broke. You just get them successful into one wallet, taking the money, and how many people are going to dump their Bitcoin the next day after that hits the news? They're going to say, well, it's not safe. If that were to happen, just saying, guys, just pointing this out. But they're never going to be able to do that with your gold and silver if it's in physical form. They can't do a backdoor theft with some sort of algorithm on the internet or whatever, because it exists in the real world, physical. It can't be seen on the internet either. Whereas cryptocurrencies are not only seen, every transaction is recorded forever and available on the internet. Just saying. There's a lot to think about with this stuff. Now, we're taking a look at the finances today, and what's the markets doing this week? Well, the VIX index is down. Volatility index is down, and we've seen the markets go up. The Dow Jones was up 443 points on Friday, and the S&P was up 61 points at 6,000. Dow Jones finished at 42,762, and it looks like most were up Russell was up 34 points, 21.32, and taking a look at our bonds and rates, we've seen climbing yields, especially on the long end. Uh, they're getting really toasty. The 10 year is up to 4.5, and the 30 years at 4.96, or is that 4.98? Uh, and they're both up considerable. We have to wait and see when this market opens up how much more they climb. That these are borrowing rates. Now taking a look at the U.S. dollar index, and it's at 99.20, and it has come up just a little bit because we were looking at 98.70 there. So we've climbed a penny on the dollar index. Thank you guys for listening to my show. You guys have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye bye.